Welcome back to another video. Today we are celebrating something very historic, very special for the city of Miami. The Museum of Miami, formerly known as History Miami, has founding era documents from the birth of our country 250 years ago. We're celebrating the semi-quincentennial, if you can say that repeatedly, of the United States of America this year, 2026. And the National Archives selected 8 cities around the country, 8 museums to display these founding era documents. We are lucky to have these documents here in Miami. We're one of 8 cities in the country that were selected, and the public can go view them for free here at the Museum of Miami in downtown Miami. So what better way to celebrate the birth of the country 250 years ago than seeing the documents, the important context into the birth of our country. They're on display in there, and we're gonna get an early look. We're gonna get a preview before all the crowds get out here, and we're gonna go inside and check it out. The National Archives has a historian here that is gonna walk us through each of the documents. It runs from June 20th through July 5th. So I honestly think we have the best time frame because it crosses over the 4th of July and it's gonna be here in our possession. So without further ado, let's go inside and see what these documents look like. These historic documents arrived by what is called the Freedom Plane on June 15th. They received a water cannon salute before being escorted off the plane into a waiting van by members of the United States Coast Guard. I was curious about the level of security into this, so I asked the historian at the National Archives to explain it to us.
We had a police escort, so we have, it was nice because we didn't have to deal with traffic. So we had the Coast Guard, they helped carry because the documents are in crates. We have 2 crates. They carried them off the plane and they put them into the van, basically. We secure them and then we get a police escort to the museum. We came to the loading dock, the security's with us the whole time, and we put them in secure storage for their 24-hour acclimation period. And then we installed last night. They're already in what we call like microclimates, except for the journal is the only one because it's a bare document. But these are all in Mylar, and then they have this piece of art zorb on the back of it, and it basically regulates humidity because, you know, we just came from Denver. They had low humidity. We're in Miami. There's high humidity here. So it regulates the humidity, and we keep a monitor in the corner that always tells us what the temperature and humidity is, and then we have to keep the light levels very low because we don't want light damages documents and then like vast changes in humidity and temperature.
Before we get into the historian showing us each of the documents, let me tell you a few things to know if you're going to be coming here while I show you guys some B-roll from the grand opening and ribbon cutting. It's 100% free on a first come, first served basis. You can also pay $15, which is basically museum admission, but it guarantees you a spot to view the exhibit along with the rest of the museum. They are strict about anything that could potentially harm these documents, so no food or drinks, including water, are allowed in this space, no flash photography, and no live streaming. All right, with that out of the way, let's go learn about the documents on display.
I'm Jessie. This is the Freedom Plane National Tour, and the idea of the exhibit is really to showcase the origins of our government and the Revolutionary War. So how it happened. And we have this nice timeline up here because it shows you, from the French and Indian Wars. We fought the French and Indian Wars. England started, wanted to recoup their money, so they started taxing us. And that's kind of the beginning, if we all know, the taxation, that representation. So after the Boston Tea Party, England passed a series of oppressive laws called the Coercive or the Intolerable Acts. And they closed the port of Boston, it levied new taxes, it allowed basically people to murder other people and then not be held accountable for it. So the Continental Congress met in 1774 to figure out how are we going to fight this, what they saw as oppression. And one of the things they did was they did the Articles of Association. So you can come closer and look at it. So this is the first time that the colonies united to fight against tyranny. It is an economic boycott. That's how they thought the best way to hit the king is hit him in his pocketbook. It's set up, and there's a whole other page that's not here. It's like this page again. And it says that we're going to boycott British goods beginning December 1st. And it set up local committees in order to enforce the boycott. The idea was we were trying to get England to rescind the Intolerable Acts. They planned on meeting the next year. But by the time that they were met in May, the battles of Lexington and Concord had happened and the war had already started. But if you think about it, this was April of 1775 when the war started, and the Declaration wasn't until 15 months later. So a lot was happening, and another reason we're doing this exhibit is July 4th wasn't the beginning. It was, it was part of the process, but it was only like one step in the process. And at this time, no one wanted independence. We just wanted to have a vote and have a say. It wasn't till really Thomas Paine published Common Sense that people realized that there was a shift, that people really wanted independence. There's some people who always want independence. There's other people who never want independence, but this is really the shift. And so the next documents in this case, they're some of my favorite because, so these are oaths of allegiance. And these are oaths of allegiance from George Washington Alex Hamilton, and Aaron Burr. And so what happened was during the horrible winter at Valley Forge, when Congress couldn't afford to pay the troops, feed the troops, supply them with arms and ammunition, there was a lot of desertions of Army officers and Army soldiers, and then also a lot of people died. And so morale was very, very low. And so Congress in February said that in order to boost morale, that every Army officer had to sign an oath of allegiance. And we sign oaths of allegiance today, the first day we work for the federal government, we take an oath to the Constitution, raise your right hand. This oath is very different from that because the Constitution doesn't come till later. We didn't have a Constitution. So this is basically an anti-King George and the entire royal family oath of allegiance. And so this is George Washington's handwriting. He did it first. He oversaw them. He's number one. So, General George Washington, commander of the Continental Army, signed by he always signed it G.O. Washington, and then Lord Sterling witnessed it and at Valley Forge. And again, we have Alexander Hamilton, same thing. Alexander, he was aide-de-camp for General Washington, signed Alex Hamilton. These were done in the field, and they were on one sheet of paper, 3 per paper, and they just cut them out, which is why they're all different sizes. Every one of them, we have 1,200 of them, they're all different sizes. These were hand-carried to us by the Department of War in the 30s when the National Archives was created. That's how special they were. They came in binders, but we still keep them in today, and we have about 1,200 of them. The Library of Congress also has 1,200 that I would love to get someday from them, but somehow they end up having some as well. So this is the first case, and this is kind of the war piece and the beginning. So this is 1774, this is in the war. But we have to kind of go back in time here with the Declaration of Independence. And so this is an original print of the Declaration of Independence. It is from 1823. And so what happened was the Secretary of State was in charge of high-level record keeping before the National Archives was created, and they owned the Declaration of Independence. And they kept getting people asking for copies. And so instead of trying to keep handwriting copies, they said, let's get an engraving plate made that we can make copies. So they hired an engraver named William Stone, and he was to create an exact replica. So basically what he did was he took the original Declaration of Independence, and he took a wet piece of paper and he stuck it on the original, and he pulled off a layer of ink. And then he took that piece of paper and he engraved an engraving plate backwards. So it's a copper engraving plate, it's the same size, and he printed 200 copies in 1823. And then down here, usually whoever got that copy's name's down here, but not always. But after the first 200 were printed, these are the imprint lines up here, and so the imprint line says, printed by William Stone by order of John Quincy Adams. Stone removed the imprint line and moved it to the bottom, so all subsequent printings, you would know that was an original printing. This is what the Declaration would have looked like in 1776. I mean, it's been highly restored. What I say is there's so in my mind, and if you heard say it earlier, so on July 2nd, we declared independence from England. And then the next 2 days, they took Jefferson and the Committee of Five's draft and they edited it. And they made a lot of changes. And so on July 4th, they approved this text. We were already declared our independence, but what happened was New York hadn't gotten approval yet to approve it. So it wasn't until July 9th. And so I have this very detailed, the July 4th, the Declaration of Independence was approved, but it wasn't engrossed until July 19th because it wasn't until July 9th that it could be unanimous. So we didn't even sign the document to August 2nd. So it was everything didn't happen again on July 4th. That's my, I say it over and over again. So this has no force of law. This was a propaganda piece. This was, we want people to join our cause. We want people to want independence. And it was distributed, to all the colonies immediately. Over the night of July 4th, July 5th, the printing, a print of it was made, and it was, sent around. This one, I would say, the one if you come to the National Archives, you can't read any of the signatures. They're all faded. They're all gone. You can see the word free and independent, and you can read the Congress and stuff at the top. You can see a couple of so the signatures are northernmost colony, I guess, to southernmost. This is Georgia. You can't even see Georgia's anymore. Georgia's are completely missing. So we're glad we can borrow this from David Rubenstein to see what it looks like. And there are about 50 of these that still exist today. This is what really gave us our independence. And this is the Treaty of Paris, and it was negotiated in Paris in 1783. The American negotiators were John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, and John Jay. The British negotiator was David Hartley. These are their seals. We have 2 copies of this. England has 1. Originally, the ribbon would have been woven through those holes. There's a couple more pieces of paper that we didn't bring that aren't here. And then it was tied at the top. And so you can see the kind of remnants of where it used to be. But you can't display it if it's tied. So we have taken it out, and we have it here on display for you. And this has been a very popular document because it is the treaty that gave us our independence. So this is, like I say, this is my favorite thing to say, and I've said it a million times, say it again. That's the breakup letter. This is the divorce is final. That's how I see it. When people ask me when we got our independence, I say it's the Treaty of Paris. I hate to say it. Legally, we became a country in 1783, even though we already had a government that we were working under the Articles of Confederation. But the Articles of Confederation, that was our government for for a little bit of the war. It took a long time to get ratified. It was very ineffective. It was just a loose confederation of the states, and Congress couldn't raise any money, basically. They couldn't pay any of their Revolutionary War debts. So there's a constitutional convention in 1787 that delegates from 12 states, because Rhode Island didn't participate, and that's this next case. This is the kind of the Constitution case. And the point of this really is, everyone thinks everything was July 4th. Our government wasn't even created until 1787. It wasn't ratified until 1788. The Bill of Rights didn't come around until 1791. So this is a draft of the Constitution from the Constitutional Convention. They were meeting in secret, so these were printed in secret by 2 printers named Dunlap and Claypool. They had to sign oaths of secrecy in order to print these, because they didn't want to get word out what they were doing. So this belonged to a delegate from New Jersey named David Brearley. It was printed offset so delegates can take notes. We have George Washington's copy, but it's on exhibit at the National Archives. I really wanted to bring that one because that one was awesome, because instead of saying "we the people of the United States," it says "we the people," and then it lists all the states separately, because you think they were still thinking of themselves as separate. And so the idea was, well, we want to be a United States. So having us called the United States instead of, the problem was all the colonies were too independent from each other. We needed to, give up some of that independence in order for our government to work. So this created the government we have now, the 3 branches of government. It was proposed in 1787 in September, and then it was eventually ratified by 9 states in 1788 in June. This is the other document that's kind of like a process document. It is the vote tally on the final vote of the Constitution. It's in that over there. I don't want to touch the case. So during the convention, delegates voted in state delegations. There were 3 delegates. Every state got 3 delegates. Rhode Island never came, so their column's always blank. And then New York's column is blank here because the 2 of New York's delegates had already left, and Alexander Hamilton was left there by himself. And as one person, you didn't have a quorum. You needed 3. So that's why New York's column is blank as well. And then William Jackson, the secretary, towards the end, he got kind of, I don't know, I think he just wanted to go home. And so he kept recording votes, but he kind of stopped recording what the votes were. So we're like, what are those? He didn't record them. But all the other pages are full. It says what they are. But this is just the final tally, and that's what was important in this document. And again, this shows you that there was so many compromises to make the Constitution. It wasn't that everyone agreed. It was a lot of give and take. And it shows you that the system we have came from a process of compromise. And one of the compromises, it didn't have a Bill of Rights. So during the constitutional ratification process, states refused to approve the document because it didn't have a Bill of Rights. North Carolina refused. Rhode Island, just like, no, we're not involved. And then some states conditionally ratified it. So when the first Congress met in New York City in 1789, one of the first things James Madison did, and James Madison was the father of the Constitution, but he also was a representative from Virginia. He proposed 19 amendments to the Constitution. The House passed 17, and that's what the document shows. The printed text on this document is the 17 that the House passed. The one page you can't see because it's on the back has the middle one, so it goes from 3rd to 11th. There's more on the back. The Senate took those 17, and that's what you see, the X's, the concurrings, the agrees, the A's. That's the consolidation process. So you see on the Article of the 3rd, it's starting to be the First Amendment that we know today. Congress 2/3 of Congress proposed these amendments to the states, and by December 15, 1791, enough states had ratified 3 through 12 to make that part of the Constitution. So on here, the first amendment, and the order of amendments reflects the order of how the Constitution would have been amended. So the First Amendment that we know and love, the freedom of speech, press, religion, redress of grievances, is really the third on this document. And so here, it's kind of coming in. Some of the words aren't final yet since this isn't the final version. The original, and that's the First Amendment now. So the original First Amendment dealt with representation in Congress, and that didn't pass. And that created a ratio for representation for 1 member of Congress for every 50,000 people. We'd have over 6,000 members of the House of Representatives today. We have 435. It's more, but it's an interesting thought, right? It's interesting. But the second one dealt with congressional pay, and it said that Congress couldn't raise their pay without an intervening election. That one didn't pass either, but in the 1980s, a student from the University of Texas wrote a paper on it saying that it legally could still be ratified, because unlike more modern amendments that have deadlines, this one didn't have a deadline. So he got a C. And then he spent the 1980s going from state to state asking if they could approve it. And by 1992, enough states had approved it to make it the 27th Amendment. And since 1985, the Archivist of the United States approves or certifies amendment. So it's only happened once, and that was in 1992 when he approved the 27th Amendment. So that's what I love about this document. And if you come to the National Archives and look at the Bill of Rights, the Bill of Rights has 12 amendments on it. It has the first 2 that didn't immediately pass, and then our First Amendment was really the third. It's such a great, it's a living document. It was 203 years later, and this technically, the First Amendment is still out there. So who knows? The whole document might be approved one day.
This is just an extremely early preview. This is as quiet as it's going to be for this exhibit, because when it opens, it's going to be pandemonium. Lines are expected to be outside the museum. And by the way, if you're planning on coming here, it is strict. You cannot bring any food, drinks, not even water, at least to this part of the museum, this exhibit specifically. And no flash photography, no live streaming, just nothing that will damage these precious documents right over here. I mean, this is history right here. This is from the National Archives. They brought it in here. So please don't do anything dumb if you come out here. There's going to be a lot of people watching. And I believe you're allowed 15 minutes, approximately 15 minutes, just so the line can keep moving. Right now, we're very lucky that we get to spend as much time as we can in here. So this is a good idea of the capacity that they're going to allow when it opens to the public. Maximum 30 people at a time. They're allowing about 15 minutes each group. And this is the queue area right over here. So again, 30 people at a time. So there you have it, guys. The founding documents on display at Museum of Miami, June 20th. Through July 5th. By the way, there is a garage right next to it called the Cultural Garage. And there is a bridge connecting from the garage to the museum area. So it is super convenient. That is currently where we are parked right now. But yeah, without further ado, leave a like if you enjoyed this video, subscribe, hit the bell button. You'll be notified each time I upload a new video. And with that said, signing off from downtown, we can see Brickell in the back. I will catch you in the next one.